It's hard to believe that Red Dead Redemption 2 is 4 years old already. To me, it feels like it came out just yesterday. Graphically, the game seems as impressive as it did at launch. It might lack the latest ray tracing, anisotropic, tessellated, whatever he does, but graphics aren't just the latest tech, they're about artistry and attention to detail, and Red Dead 2 remains one of the most beautiful and intricate games I've ever played. The story too feels just as authentic as ever, with wonderfully voiced characters throughout, and quests that, although often descending into murder sprees, like most Rockstar games, are told with narrative flourishes that are second to none. The characterization of games as AAA no longer means quality to me. More likely it indicates a game that's afraid to take risks, relies on formulaic gameplay, unimaginative plots, and it'll be looking for ways to milk its player base with microtransactions. Red Dead 2 is an exception. This for me is what AAA gaming should be, a 60+ hour story, and that's before counting the side quests, numerous in-game activities from card games to hunting, a vast world to explore that actually adds a new region after you complete the main game. In terms of value for money, Red Dead 2 never drops the ball. It actually runs with it and keeps on running, to the point at which, for me at least, I was ready for the story to wrap up and longing for the game to cut me loose so I could just go and explore the world. Amazing and heartening. In an age of cynicism, Rockstar proves that making an amazing game that is packed with content is still the best business model of all. Of course, Red Dead 2 is not faultless. Calling something a masterpiece, which this game is not the same as saying it's perfect. I mentioned the story. Well, for me, it's far too long. Or maybe it would be more accurate to say that about halfway through it starts to repeat itself too much, so that it feels stretched, like butter that has been scraped over too much bread if there were hobbits living in Lemoyne. The game's protagonist, Arthur Morgan, seems increasingly passive as he fulfills quest after quest for the gang leader Dutch van der Linde. He starts bitching to other gang members about the situation they're in, but never takes action until you're approaching the end of the game when, spoiler alert, he's dying. His relationship with Dutch has eroded to the point he has no other choice. The game is at pains to stress that loyalty is the reason that Arthur is not doing anything. Dutch raised him, and that's why he doesn't want to take action when he's confronted by Dutch's increasingly erratic behaviour. But when he comes to this realisation over the course of 10+ hours of gameplay, it just can lead to a sense of frustration setting in. It certainly did for me. I was shouting at the devs, just get things moving. He needs to do something at this point. But they don't, and they've got their vision for how things should play out. And although the game may run a little long, it also means they make some fantastic choices. Arthur's illness, for one, I really wouldn't like that to be changed. I like the fact that the character I'm playing is struggling with his own mortality. To make the player feel weak, vulnerable, experience a sense of hopelessness, it's something that few games dare to do. A lot of games are adolescent power fantasies at the end of the day, and although Red Dead 2 has its fair share of this, there's nothing quite like knocking 6 guys out of their saddles in Deadeye mode. It does a better job than most of reaching for something larger, more meaningful. In the end, Arthur realises that the pursuit of money has been fruitless, and the dream of escaping has always been a fantasy. His life is ending. Now it's the people he can save before that happens that are all that matter. It's pulpy. I wouldn't like to pretend it's the greatest story ever told, but it's certainly better than the majority of games, and the way it's presented, the key to this being the voice acting, is consistently brilliant throughout. I really liked Arthur. Despite my frustrations with his lack of agency, they make him as sympathetic as possible while still allowing the player freedom to murder countless civilians or play more mercifully if they wish. Although there's no real way to do a bloodless playthrough of Red Dead 2, even if you're mindful of only killing enemy gang members, government agents or bounty hunters, you are still effectively a mass murderer by the end, so the usual narrative dissonance does set in when you agonise about that one lost life from your own faction when you've just slaughtered 50 people. There is no ambiguity really about who is in the wrong. You are in the wrong. You are a mass murderer. This is par for the course in most action adventure games, but it's precisely because the characters are so rich and deep in Red Dead 2 that you notice how silly this is. I wanted to talk about some of the reasons why the game's world feels so immersive, but there are whole videos about horse balls shrinking in cold weather and the stunning sound design as you travel through the wilderness, birds chirping, deers honking in the distance. Suffice to say, this level of detail is absent in most games. The fact that the voice lines are recorded multiple different ways according to your proximity to the NPC. It's a subtle inclusion, but one that adds so many hours of extra work for the devs, yet they went for it. Decisions like these are replete throughout the game, and it's the combination of details like this that leave you wondering, why don't other games feel this authentic? It's because of all of this. It takes so much time and effort, and most studios wouldn't do it or couldn't invest the time and money to pull it off. I've heard the criticisms about Rockstar regarding crunch, and that's unfortunate. There must be a way to create games of this quality without flogging your workforce to death. Hire more staff, give people the time they need to do good work. Obviously, I'm not a business person, because I'd rather make 1 billion with a happy workforce than 2 billion with a workforce that's frazzled. Hopefully, Rockstar can find a way to manage things better in the march towards GTA 6. Don't rush it, get it right. And please don't squeeze the joy out of people in the process. Whatever the working conditions may have been like, the people responsible for this game made something truly amazing. When lists are made of the most influential titles in gaming, Red Dead 2 is going to be on them from now on. Not everything Rockstar had planned for the game panned out, however. Red Dead Online was not the success they hoped it would be, and although it's still available to play, active development has ceased. The player base never rivaled the behemoth that is GTA Online. Ironically for me, this is the reason I love Red Dead 2 all the more, whereas I just liked GTA 5, I thought it was okay. I didn't fall in love with it. Crucially, Red Dead 2 caters to me as a single player much more effectively than Rockstar's automotive frenzy. After the main story of GTA 5 ended, I felt there was really no point in returning to Michael, Trevor and Franklin to potter around the world. Red Dead 2, on the other hand, spends a total of 6 hours across 2 epilogues after Arthur has died, introducing you in detail to John Marston, the protagonist from the first Red Dead game, and the person Arthur, through his sacrifice, gave a shot at a better life. The end for Arthur is actually the beginning for John. It's a genius move, and I wonder how much of it is to do with the legacy of that first game. If so, then it proves that sometimes having to line things up with other stories, which can sometimes hamper creators, in this case really led to something truly unique with the finish of Red Dead 2. I'm so glad this sort of roaming gameplay post-story is still an option in Rockstar games. It's what I used to enjoy, and although you could technically do it in GTA 5, there was no doubt you were being funneled towards the online space. All the sorts of things I like to do, relax, drive or ride around, looking at stuff, completing the odd side mission in my own time, these activities are actively ruined by other players. They're not enhanced by other players. The online space is something different to what I want out of an open world Rockstar game. I'm under no illusions I'm an outlier in this, and I suspect, sadly, Red Dead 2 might be the last game where a focus on the single player experience takes priority. GTA Online continues to make millions for the company, and if money is the priority, and it always is, I imagine the model moving forward will be GTA 5 rather than Red Dead 2. The single player being the primer for the multiplayer cash cow. It reminds me of how the campaign in FPS shooters like COD and Battlefield has taken a backseat. I really hope that doesn't happen with Rockstar games. I want more intricate storytelling, fleshed out characters and brilliant voice acting. It's not perfect though, I said that earlier. The gunplay is something people seem to really like, but I found it pretty boring ultimately. When the most effective way to dispatch enemies is so obvious, Deadeye, and simply headshot everyone, doing anything else just becomes whimsy on the part of the player. Yes, you can throw dynamite, yes, you can run up to people and shotgun them, but nothing gets the job done. Like Deadeye, there's really no barrier to using that skill either. The items that replenish it instantly are plentiful. Same thing with health and stamina. It means you're never really in any danger of dying. In fact, most of the time when I died, it was because of a terrain glitch or because Arthur got confused about what I wanted him to do, ran towards an enemy instead of mounting his horse. It's amazing really that such a polished game can still have so many little frustrations in it. The cover system is janky, doesn't quite work, doesn't seem to be a lot of points sticking to cover, sometimes just duck. You have more freedom to move on a dime when you're not stuck to a wall. On a similar note, I think Rockstar really needs to work on the number of keys and key combinations required to do things. It's incredibly difficult to remember all of this stuff. Early on in the game, as an example, when you're first introduced to the controls, the game deluges you with the different ways for keeping up with your gang members while you're on horseback, how to travel automatically, how to travel in formation, how to switch position in a line of horsemen. It's ridiculous, and nobody's going to remember it all. You don't even use half of those commands when the game proper starts. They also inexplicably hide really important things that make the game much less time consuming. Some people don't realize that there is actually fast travel in this game. Verisimilitude and realism is one thing, but hiding such an important thing behind an unlock that it's not obvious. Basically, you have to upgrade Arthur's tent in camp and then you get access to a fast travel map, but the game doesn't tell you that that is going to happen, and there doesn't seem to be a point in upgrading his tent apart from cosmetic reasons. Yes, you can Google this stuff. Is there a fast travel map in Red Dead 2? But I'd rather not. I would rather the game told me, invest here and it will save you a ton of time. I think, thinking back, that's why I stopped playing in my first attempt to play through the game, because travel was taking far too long. It's like they want it both ways. Oh yes, we have this realistic game where you have to travel on horseback, but we've also hidden a workaround behind an unlock. Come on, Rockstar, which is it? Just give me the fast travel map if it's in the game. I don't know. I also had this weird problem when I first started playing, that none of the skill boosts I was getting, or the new guns or the loot, really seemed worth it. They didn't make my character that much better. Yes, you do get more health and stamina as you progress, so you're going up in levels, so does your horse. There are even items like saddles that give stat boosts and make the horse consume less stamina, for instance, but it was like nothing I was getting really made an impact on how effective my character was. I was thinking, this is a AAA game. Where are all the fat loots? Where's the reason for me to play? The stuff that makes me unstoppable and a badass. Why don't these cosmetic items that I'm crafting out of legendary hides give me like 1000 plus health? I had to come back to the game knowing all that, knowing what to expect, before the choices that the devs have made really clicked for me. In fact, in the end, I prefer it. It's pretty old school when you think about it. You don't hunt for items so you can get stronger. You hunt for them because it's fun to do. It's more like getting achievements, something that I've never really bought into, because a badge to me doesn't feel like a reward. But in Red Dead 2, I find I do want that cosmetic reward. I find it worthwhile. I want to hunt down the rare spotted cougar because its pelt will allow me to craft a new pair of moccasins. I wouldn't usually bother with something so time consuming for such meager reward, but for some reason in Red Dead 2 I want to. I think it's because I enjoy the world so much and it's a pleasure to be in it. I don't need the loot to make the experience worthwhile. Just that modest carrot to give me a direction, and then it's about the journey and the finding of the thing. I really love it for these and many more reasons, but I could go on forever. I hope you've enjoyed listening to my thoughts. Please post yours in the comments. I've been Napyet. Please like and sub, and I'll see you for more reviews in the future.